Hey guys, and welcome back to Gold Rush, the game. Bam bam bam! Where we are... guess what? We're mining gold! No, kidding. We're not mining gold. We're mining dirt that I'm pretending has gold in it. Just so that you guys don't rage and riot and kill me! Right, talk about square. Okay. Alrighty tighty. So I finally got my my press kit through for Kingdom Come Deliverance, which you will be seeing going up today, as when this video goes live. Yeah, I've been waiting for it for ages, which is why, like, if you've been wondering why I haven't covered it, it's because I've been waiting on the press kit arriving. But there was like some mix-ups and stuff, so it's cool. But we'll be covering some Kingdom Come Deliverance, and I'm really looking forward to that because it's a game that if you don't know what it is, it's a game that I covered 2 years ago when it was in alpha, and I absolutely fell in love with the game. I've got the developers on Skype, and like I got really invested in it because, as you may or may not know, actually, I'm quite a history like nerd. Not in that like I know an awful lot about history, just that it fascinates me. I know like a fair bit, but not like I wouldn't consider myself a buff in any way, shape, or form. When it comes to history, I mean, I'm pretty buff, you know what I mean? Not really, but yeah, like I totally fell in love with the game because, sorry, I just had to turn my headset down. I totally fell in love with the game because of the sheer attention to detail they went into, not only for the where they were, but for the names, the combat system, like obviously the architecture and all that, and exactly what happened, and the fact it was based in a place that I hadn't really heard much about in terms of history, which made it intriguing. So yeah, I thought, oh, this sounds good, and also the fact that like the game doesn't peg your character as some like superhero, like gonna kick everyone's ass and rule the land type character. It's like you're just another dude in the world, and like things happen around you regardless of whether you intervene or not. So it's like in The Witcher where you take a quest, or Skyrim or Oblivion, you take a quest and it's like, okay, I'll get to that quest in about 6 years. If you try to do the same thing in Kingdom Come Deliverance, so it's like, oh, the army is attacking this town, and you're like, yeah, okay, I'll do that, and then you just don't, and you're like, oh, I'll just come back to that. I've got other side quests to do. Like the town will just get sacked and everyone will die. It's like, yeah, we told you that the army was attacking the town and you could have helped, but no, you didn't, and therefore this town is now gone. So it's like, it's choice and consequence in a way that doesn't really get covered in many games, unless it's very explicit and like, you've got 2 minutes to go and help this town! But no, it's like a choice and consequence, and yeah, like you... Hello? Fucking front loader just wasn't wanting to go up the hill. It's choice and consequence, and the inaction and action is a choice and a consequence as well, which is kind of fun. I kind of like that. In the alpha that I played 2 years ago, the choice and consequence that was in that was really cool, that was like inaction and action, choice and consequence, was that if there was a guy that was dying and they told you to go to the healer and like get the healer up to help him, but the healer was an absolute bitch and you had to kind of persuade her, and if you couldn't persuade her fast enough, they just died, and like all the soldiers just hated you because you let their friend die and they asked you to do them a favor, and you just like didn't because you suck. So yeah, it was like super cool, man, super cool. I know, I love stuff like that where it's like, yeah, well, you could have saved the guy, but you took too long. And it's like, it's calls to action like that like really interested me about the game. Plus, obviously, the combat system is just phenomenal. It's sad, actually. I've seen some people on Twitter. I think it was Splattercat that was on Twitter, and he was like, "Oh, like if you can't do this combat system, all you need to do is get like a warhammer and just bum rush them with F, or something like that." And I was like, "Oh, that's kind of sad. Like, these guys spent so long in this combat system, and you're like, yeah, well, I can't really do it, so I just found a way to bum rush it. And it's like, oh, that's really sad in my eyes, anyway. It's like, oh, I know how hard the developers actually worked on the combat system, but just to be like, yeah, it's too hard. Oh, I don't know. It was like, I read that and I was like, oh, that's kind of disappointing. I don't know. Like, I personally, I wouldn't watch anything. I wouldn't watch it if someone. I don't know. It's like when people cheese games. It just totally puts me off. I'm not like throwing shade at Splatter or anything like that. He's a good guy. But yeah, when people cheese games, I don't know. Like, what do you guys think? Like, I feel like I was actually talking to Susie about this the other day about difficulty curves in games and how there are the human reaction to difficulty curves in games, and how, like, if a game is too difficult, there's three things that ends up happening. Either you Dark Souls style get good scrub, which means that the difficulty has been made in such a way that like it's a good difficulty, and that you have to get good in order to get better at the game, and that is an endearing difficulty to me anyway. I'm like, right, okay, if I'm required to get better in order to complete this game, then good. Because that means that, like, that type of progress, to me, personally, is worth more than you need to grind to get good at this game. Okay, shit, I think I've just come across a fourth thing. But yeah, so you've got either the human reaction of get good, which is, in my opinion, the best one. You've got, as I mentioned, grinding, where it's like, and Dark Souls kind of falls to this a little bit, and that you can at least beat the early bosses by just grinding a lot, but it's the game kind of disincentivizes you to do that. But regardless, you can do that if you completely overgrind in Dark Souls up to a certain level, which is why New Game Plus in Dark Souls is just phenomenal, because it gets to the point where everything is just difficult and you need to be good. The next one is that you just die constantly, and like that's their difficulty, is that you die really easily and all the enemies have loads of health. And okay, yeah, okay, I get that that's kind of like Dark Souls, but I'm thinking more FPS styles, where it's like I think Gears of War, in my opinion, kind of fell foul of this, where it's like, we're going to throw loads of enemies at you, and they will take a lot of bullets to kill, and you will die in one. It's like, you've kind of ruined the entire point of it being a difficult, like, of it being a difficulty there, in that it's just boring. And what ends up happening is the human reaction is to be like, okay, this is too difficult, and it's not a fun and engaging difficulty, because there is no get good to bullets spraying in your face. There's just get lucky, or and the human reaction is turn the difficulty down because they're not enjoying it. Or the next one is cheese, like what I said with Splattercat, where something's too difficult and you just find a way to cheese it. And in my opinion, that is, one, the least engaging way of playing a game, and two, the probably the worst one, because that means that, especially if it's something that's been left in on purpose, it's like, okay, you just kind of ruined the game by making it super cheesy. Don't know. I much prefer the get good method. I think cheesing game systems in order to kind of push your way past more difficult sections is pretty lame. And I think it's like, I don't know how many of you will know this reference, but like Europa Universalis 4, the Three Mountains achievement, which requires you to basically, I'll give a quick insight to anyone who doesn't know. Europa Universalis 4 is a grand strategy game. Brilliant game, or at least it was before they put a load of DLCs on it. I don't know what it's like now. I think I was on like the 6th major DLC, and there's now like 13 or some shit. Regardless, brilliant game. But one of the achievements, Three Mountains, makes you play as a shitty little province off the coast of Japan called Ryukyu, and you need to take over the world with them. And the game gets to, you get to pretty much a snowball point in the game where you're doing so well that you can basically just curb stomp everyone. But there's mechanics in place that make that a bit harder, so it's a very, very, very difficult achievement to get. And there's a load of people who done the achievement, but via like proper cheesing some in-game mechanics. And it's like, well, it's not really an achievement if you cheese it, and it's not entertaining to watch either. And don't get me wrong, like I used some cheeses on some of the achievement runs that I done, but more in the fact that the community at large said that it was pretty much an impossible achievements to get without using a bit of cheese, and that's sad to me. That's like a total failure on the developer's point to make it so that, and don't get me wrong, the EU4 community is not one that would be like, yeah, it's impossible to get this achievement if it was not like mathematically impossible. Because there's certain things that limit your progression in that game. There's certain things that are also luck based. Like you can be subject to RNGesus. But yeah, some of the stuff's kind of rough. But yeah, so in my opinion, EU4 did suffer greatly from, well, the game itself didn't suffer from it, but the achievements suffered from some bad design. Like I said, I don't know what the game's like now, but definitely back when I was playing it, there was some definite issues that limited access to achievements. Anyway, yeah, that's my game design talk. And don't get me wrong, I'm not telling anyone how to make a game because I've got no fucking clue. But yeah, just a couple of things that bug me when it comes to game difficulty, and things that I don't like to see in a game, and things that I don't like to see in a like content creator. In that respect, is that like, so it goes back to what I was talking about, the human reaction. So in my opinion, it's much better if you notice that there's a flaw in the game, or coming back to the Splattercat thing once again. I'm not calling him out, because I love the guy. But the fact that if there is an option to get good, so obviously these the statuses that I spoke of aren't mutually exclusive, because for example there are, like in Gears of War, it's too fucking difficult on extreme, so you're forced to use cheeses in order to get past it. But in my opinion, if you can get one that's higher up in the line, then like that's a better way to do it. So if you can cheese your way past the difficulty, then fair enough, go ahead. But if there is an option to get good, e.g. Dark Souls, if like there's an option, you've got the option in Dark Souls to get good in order to beat bosses, or you can grind. And if the higher option is available, then in my opinion you should always take the higher option. So get good, scrub. And I suppose it's the same as things like Monster Hunter as well. I mean, you could either grind or you could just get good at it. There are certain points in Monster Hunter where you will just straight up die because you get like one hit and it's impossible to dodge or something along those lines. And once again, in my opinion, if there's any point in a game where it's impossible for you to win at even the lowest level, which is another reason why I love Dark Souls, is because you've got soul level 1 playthroughs where you don't actually need to level up at all and you can still win the game, so to speak. Which is a sign of good game design, which I think is one of the reasons why people adore Dark Souls so much, is because there's always that option to get better. But yeah, going back to what I was saying, I'm kind of all over the place with this one. If you've got an option to get good, you should always get good before you choose the grind method, or before you choose to cheese it, or before you choose to bump the difficulty down. And that's the four kind of options that you've got there, and that's the way that you should always go. I don't think you should ever resort to cheesing it if there's an option that you could just practice and get better at the game, in my opinion anyway. Steejo's moral compass to playing video games, but I mean, at the end of the day, if you're playing a single player game, fucking go ahead, do whatever the fuck you want. Like, I don't really care. But personally, it's more for a content creator standpoint, and I'm using content creator instead of the word YouTuber because obviously people on Twitch and things. From a content creator standpoint, if you're playing the game, I just won't watch it if you resort to cheesing as opposed to actually getting better at the game. And I think you can throw this into pretty much any game you can think of. So you've got things like Call of Duty, right? Let's apply it to Call of Duty. You can either get good at the game, like actually be good at Call of Duty, and this, you can apply this to multiplayer as well. So you can just get good at the game, be a better shot, be more aware, like check your corners, like get higher reflexes, know what I mean? You can just get good at the game. Or you can choose the next one, which is grind, aka get yourself levels so that you can get the better weapons. Or you can choose the next option, which is cheese the game. And this applies for, well, the grind applies for online only, and the cheese the game can apply to both of them, and then lowering the difficulty obviously only applies to single player. But you can cheese the game and camp spots, or in single player in Call of Duty, I don't know if it's still like this, but you had AI that could, basically you could just wait it out. You could play the hardest difficulty on Call of Duty and just wait it out and let your AI just murder everything. And it's like, well, there's no real achievement in that. And I'm sure there's plenty of games that you can kind of think about in that respect, where it's like you can go through that flowchart type thing. And personally, if a game doesn't offer the that top option, the get good, the improve your skill, then that's a sign of bad game design. I'm going to talk about the mobile game that I play, Marvel Contest of Champions. You should check out some of the videos I've done on it. It's a good game. It is a good game in many respects, but it's also a shit game in a few respects. And it's a fighting game, so it's a 1v1 fighting game. But there's a few mechanics that are just stupid, like absolutely stupid, that result in not very fun and interactive gameplay. So the first one is kind of on the fringe, and it's a mechanic called evade, where you can be mid combo on someone and the enemy will just straight up evade, just for no reason, like just because of a proc, percentage random occurrence. And they'll just evade, and that'll give them an in on you. The reason that that's kind of fringe is because if you're good enough at the game, you can spot the evade and then block it, which is fine, and there are obviously ways around it as well. The other mechanic is there are some champions that do damage back, so when you hit a champion, you will get damage back on you, and the only way to kind of counter that is there's certain champions that don't get damage back on them. And I'm talking, for anyone who knows the game, I'm talking about like your Electros and your Awakened Iceman and stuff like that, where with Awakened Iceman it does a damage over time on you at the start of a fight. So if you're fighting a high enough difficulty enemy, you basically will die straight away because of this damage unless you've got the right character. And there's a number of other characters that are like that, where it's just kind of, it's impossible not to take damage by them. And in my opinion, you're kind of removing the fact that you're removing the fact that you can't play flawlessly and still win. And that, in my opinion, is a big fuck up in the game. Like, in a really bad design decision. If you cannot play a game flawlessly, if you can play a game flawlessly and still lose, then there's a design fuck up there. But like I says, then it goes to, oh well, you just need to grind for either better champions or better, like, level up your champions or whatnot, and it's like, well, you should be able to play flawlessly and still win regardless. But yeah, that's just a minor issue I've got with that game, and pretty much all games in general. If there's no way to play flawlessly, but if you can play flawlessly and still die, then there's bad design going in there. But anyway, guys, that's all we've unfortunately got for this video. So as always, thanks a lot for watching. I've been Studio, you've been awesome, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.